Hi, my name's Ruby. Today I'm going to be talking about developmental psychology, and so let's get started. Um, the lifespan approach. Developmental psychology takes the view that development is not a process with a clear ending, viewed as a process that continues from birth to death. It is it is the study that of the changes occur in people's abilities and behaviors as they age. So research methods. Normative development, which is the typical sequence of developmental changes for a group of people. Normative development is often studied using a cross-sectional method, which is which seeks to compare groups of people of various age on similar tests. This approach can reveal the average age at which certain skills or abilities appear, but tells little about the actual development of any single individual. Longitude method involves following a small group of people over a long period proportion of their lives, assessing changes at set intervals. More difficult and more expensive than the cross-sectional method, and it is the benefit of the study is that individuals over time rules out of the differences between subjects that other studies include. Mature Maturists emphasize the role of genetically programmed growth and developmental of the body, and that particularly on the nervous system. Um, Maturation can be best defined as biological readiness. Environmentalist, the extreme form can be found in Locke's tabula rasa idea, which states that all developmental is a direct result of learning. Infants are born with a blank slate on which to experience edges experience its lessons. The organism develops more complex and behaviors and the cognition because it requires more association through learning. Developmental issues. An issue about studying development is whether development is continuous or discontinuous. The critical period refers to at a time during which a skill or ability must develop. If the ability does not develop during that time, it probably will never develop, or at the least will not develop as well. Collectivist culture is one in which the needs of society are placed before the needs of the individual. Individualistic cultures promote personal needs about, about the needs of the society. Stages are a pattern of behavior that occurs in a fixed sequence. Each stage has a unique set of cognitive structures or a set of mental abilities that build on the cognitive structure established in the previous stage. Psychologists typically agree that the edges of stages are blurred and may overlap for various domains within a stage. Physical development starts at conception. The zygote or fertilized egg does not goes through three distinct phases of gestation prior to birth. The first stage is the germinal stage, in which the zygote undergoes cell division, expanding to 64 cells and implants itself in the uterine wall. This stage lasts about 2 weeks. In the fetal stage, sexual differentiation occurs and movement begins to develop. Growth is rapid in this stage. Various harmful environmental agents known as teratogens may affect fetal development. Fetal alcohol syndrome, which is when fetuses are exposed to alcohol and which results in the physical abnormalities and cognitive deficiencies. A newborn baby or neonate is nearly helpless but is equipped with a few reflexes. The sucking reflex can be triggered by placing something in the baby's mouth. The palmar reflex is the automatic grabbing elicited by something being placed in one of the neonate's hands. Stroking the bottom of the foot because the toes to splay out, the baby skin reflex. And then the head turn reflex is the response elicited by touching the baby's cheek. The motor reflex is the playing out of the limbs when a loud noise occurs. And finally, neonates have the orienting reflexes, which is activated when they orient themselves to a sudden change in their surroundings. Infants seem to have innate like and dislikes. They prefer to look at face-like patterns over the more or less complex patterns. They also make stereotyped ingestive response, which is sucking and smacking the lips if someone places a drop of sugar water in their mouth, and one uses lemon juice, the neonate will gape, allowing the fluids to come out of the mouth, sticking out the tongue. Perceptual and motor development depends on the developmental of the nervous system. The development of the nervous system depends on environmental interactions of the part of the child. The critical theme in developmental psychology is that the critical period for that some parts of the brain, the phrase use it or lose it, holds true. For example, Jeannie, a girl who was deprived of language until she was the age of 13, was never able to develop language fully, even though she was educated. The, phys- the physiological development of the child depends on the interaction with the environment. Puberty is another landmark of physically in the early adulthood. In the elderly population, they lose much of their efficiency. Cognitive development refers to the development of learning, memory, reasoning, problem solving, and related skills. Piaget developmental theory is based on the concept of equilibration in the attempt to reach the balance between what is the child encounters in the environment and what cognitive structures the child brings to the situation. Children try to teach equilibration through a simulation, incorporating new ideas into existing schemas. Schemas are the mental representational model. When facing information that does not easily fit into an existing schema, the child must modify the schema to include the new information that is called accommodation. Piaget said that children go through a series of developmental stages in a fixed order. Sensor-motor stages occur during the first 2 years of life and is typified by reactions, and then circular reactions, which are repeated behaviors by which the infant manipulates the environment. Object permanence is the knowledge that objects continue to exist when they are outside the field of view. Also develop here the goal-oriented behavior. Pre-optional stage occurs once ages 2 or 7, the developmental of language, symbolic thinking, or the ability to use words to substance for objects. Egocentrism, seeing the world only from the one point of view. Artificialism, believing that all things are human-made. Animism, believing that all things are living. Concrete operational stage occurs when from 7 to 11, stages where develop the ability to perform a mental operation, then reverse their thinking back to the starting point, a concept called reversibility. Conservation, the idea that the amount of substance does not change because it's arranged differently. Formal operational stage occurs about age 12. Different children here are able to understand abstractions and symbolic relationships, also capable of metacognitions or the ability to recognize one cognitive process and changes to and adapt to those processes if they aren't successful. Where the children acquires hypothetical reasoning, which is the ability to figure out the answer to problems in which a person does not have a direct experience. Criticism of Piaget, underestimation of children's abilities. Theory of mind allows children to understand that other people see the world differently than they do. Psychologists test theory of mind through the false belief task. Here, a child under for its test opens a box labeled pencils and discovers actually had gumballs. When asked what will the next boy think and what's inside the box, he will say gumballs. Vygotsky believed that much of development occurs by internalization, the absorption of knowledge into the self from environmental and social contexts. Fluid intelligence, the ability to think in terms of abstract concepts and symbolic relationships. Crystallized intelligence, or specific knowledge of facts and information. Social development is the development of the ability to interact with others and with the social structures in which we live. Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development include the following. Trust versus mistrust occurs in 1 year of life. Here, infants decide whether the world is friendly or hostile, depending on whether or not they can trust the basic needs will be met. Autonomy and shame versus shame and doubt occurs ages 1 to 3. The child must develop the sense of control over bodily functions as well as over the environment. Another one is innative and versus guilt, occurs during the age of 3 to 6. Children here must take initiative to learn to assert themselves socially without overstepping their bounds. The next one is industry versus inferiority, occurs ages 6 to 12. Here children are at school and are becoming accustomed to receiving feedback from their work, so they must gain a sense of accomplishment and pride in their work. So the next one is identity versus role confusion, involves the adolescent to search for identity. Next one is intimacy and isolation, early adulthood, when we attempt to form loving, lasting relationships. And generativity versus stagnation, middle adulthood, and brings with it the struggles to be productive in both career and home, and to contribute to the next generation with ideas and possibility with children. So now we're talking about Harry Harlow. He demonstrated that monkey infants need the comfort and security as much as food. So the use of artificial monkey mother, infants became more attached to a softer mother, which shows more of the comfort and security than the wired mothers which provided food. Attachment, the tendency to prefer specific familiar individuals over others. John Bowlby, the father of attachment, believed that the close and loving relationship between a child and his caregiver is critical to the infant's healthy development and provides a model that the growing child will sue to build mutually beneficial relationships in the long term. Mary Hainsworth used the strange situation where the parent or the primary guardian leaves a child with a stranger and then returns. Their kinds of attachment is secure, insecure, avoidant, and disorganized. There's three types of parenting styles: authority, authority, authoritarian. Parents have high expectations for the child to comply with rules and without debate. Authoritative, parents also expect compliance to rule, but explain rules and encourage independence. And then there's permissive, parents that have few expectations and are warm and non-demanding. So moral development. Kohlberg's level 1 occurs age 7 to 10. Pre-conventional morality is the morality based on the judgment of fear and by evaluating the benefit for themselves. The level 2 occurs ages 10 to 16 and sometimes beyond. Is the conventional morality and the internalizing of the society rules and morals. And then there's the level 3 occurs in ages 16 and onwards. The post-conventional morality, social rules are still important, but an internal set of values have developed and may generate occasional conflict with social values. And then we have sex role, sex differences. So psychosexual development is the development on awareness of one's own sexuality, including the identification of the self with a particular gender. Gender identity is the awareness that they are boys or girls by the age of 2 or 3. Gender typing is acquisition of sex-related roles, and then the gender constancy is a gender is fixed and changeable characteristics. And now we have segment fraud development, 4 major roles. So the first one's oral stage, was the sucking. Then second was anal stage, the pleasure form of elimination. And then the phallic stage, which is the genital stimulation, is pleasurable. And then the last one, the genital stage, establishment and maintenance of standard heterosexual relationships. So now we have so now we're going to be talking about the 2 little stories that come in and why kids identify with their gender. So Oedipus complex, the male child's sexual desire for the mother, which conflicts with the child's fear of the father. And then the Electra conflict, girls decide their father while fearing their mother. So this is the pretty much for social developmental, part 2 of developmental psychology. So the next time we're going to be talking about personality, and so hope to see you there.